Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Every once in a while, we have to bring out the big dog.
Yeah.
Oh, God help us. It's time for Danny Unleashed. Sponsored by Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Go to eastonroofing.com for more.
Yes, indeed, Easton Roofing. You know, they're hiring as well. Tech repair techs. No experience required. They will train you for free. Jobs start at $20 per hour, depending upon experience. Could be a lot higher, even salaried. Also, looking for experienced residential and commercial sales reps. W-2 employee, salary plus bonus, healthcare, an IRA match, a truck, a phone, uniform, and much more, all included. A great place to work is Easton Roofing, 913-257-5426. Call Joe at 913-257-5426, online at eastonroofing.com. Certified commercial roofer. Did a massive job right out by the right at the building behind us there at 810. Man, huge cranes, and I don't even know what all it took to do that job, but just fantastic. Manufacturer-backed warranty, labor, materials up to 25 years. Great relationship with all the insurance companies out there. That is Easton Roofing. So whether it's for home or business, Easton Roofing has you covered. Let them send out one of the guys, Charles, Austin, Dan, Chris, to give you an estimate. Always free estimates, free inspection. They'll be happy to take care of you the way we've taken care of my family and Danny Clinkscale's family. So check them out online at eastonroofing.com. Easton Roofing, integrity matters. Danny Clinkscale on our Sprint guest line. Danny, how are you?
Doing just fine, Soren. This is the third week that I plan to do this segment of the program from a park. It's the first time the weather is cooperated, so I am sitting in Shawnee Mission Park, gazing out over a pleasant vista, ready to talk to you.
Very good, and as long as the signal is great, I don't really care where you come from. So good for you, Danny.
A lot of people out here, I'll say that. A lot of people enjoying the half-decent weather. It's not great today. It's a little cool, but very, very big crowds out here at the park. Although where I am, they had to sort of have a road issue up there. So I picked a very quiet spot, so we should be just fine.
How far apart are these people?
When I was driving by, the people seem to be doing a good job of social distancing, but a lot of people playing Frisbee golf and things like that. Skateboarding, stuff like that. So.
Well, very good. You know, as long as everybody's being safe, wash your hands after you throw the Frisbee around and get it out of the same deal, right? Everybody's got to be smart and responsible.
It'd be fun. Each person has a thing of sanitizer, and they have to use it after each throw.
Well, in Frisbee golf, you kind of carry it's like your own golf clubs. Most people who are at least halfway serious about it carry their own clubs, as it were, so you're not sharing them. So.
They could end up in the same. I'm not even going to believe it.
Can you be a serious Frisbee golfer?
Yes, I know. I know people who have been. Yeah, you can. Yep.
Yeah,
Jed says he has too. So okay.
Listen,
there are professionals who make six figures or so.
Yeah, that's comedic, but more power to you.
Absolutely.
Somebody's
you
can
pay. Make it.
Listen,
man.
I'm sure there's Frisbee sponsors that are out there like, hey, if you're the best, man, we'll give you $50K to throw our Frisbee, our disc. I believe it's called disc golf for those that are serious, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you are correct. You're correct there. So it's a lovely Friday, Big Friday, DannyClinkscale.com. Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. The first of a big two-parter with one Ryan Lefevre is up today, so I enjoyed that one. Great conversation with him. And, we never start off with the idea that they're going to be two parts, and some of them just morph that way. And seeing as Ryan was arriving in Kansas City to become one of the voices of the Royals, and the podcast was almost an hour long, it became a two-parter. So part two next Friday.
Very good. I think it depends upon those who have more to say, right?
Exactly.
Bill Belichick
exactly right.
would not be a two-parter if you had Bill Belichick sat down.
No,
Brian,
actually, this is the fourth two-parter, and probably none of these will surprise you. The first one was Mike Swanson.
Yep.
The second one was Stan Weber.
Yep.
Almost surprised that wasn't a three-parter.
I was going to make a joke before you started talking that. Well, if is Stan a five-part series? I can take up the whole week.
Danny asked him two questions. The first part was one question. Second part was the other question.
Yeah. And Peter Vermes was the other one until Ryan. So there you go.
Very good. All right, let's start with the that's at DannyClinkscale.com, by the way. And, of course, those brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing, as Danny said. Danny, let's start with the Chiefs. Bashad Breeland, in the mix now, 1 year, $4.5 million. First, just that contract in and of itself. What's your reaction to getting Bashad Breeland back?
I think that for whatever reasons, be it the state of the nation or whatever, I think that the longer you waited in this free agent market, the better off you were. I think most of the contracts that we're seeing signed right now would be considered, in past years to be a little low. So I think that bargains are out there, and I think for a need that the Chiefs had and for the quality of play they received, I'd say it's quite a good deal. 1 year, you're not committed for a long term, not a whole lot of money. I mean, they don't have a whole lot of money, so I think I think it's an excellent signing. I mean, I think that you're talking about somebody you'd be surprised if you get somebody better in the draft before, and unless it was the second, third round. So I think it's a good signing. I think Chiefs fans should be very happy with it.
I think the Chiefs' defense proved that good depth on the defensive side of the ball with a couple of real difference makers can really turn a defense around. They were much better in the second half, obviously, during that 9-0 stretch, the last 6 regular season games and the 3 postseason games. And I don't think it was that, Breeland was brilliant, clearly, based upon the fact that there was no major offer for him. I really thought he was going to get like 3 for 24. I thought the Super Bowl winning kiss would be placed upon him, and he would get paid. It turns out only Fuller got the Super Bowl winning kiss. I would have thought 3 for 24 could have gotten you. Really, I would have thought 3 for 24 would get Fuller, and 3 for 27 would get Breeland. And if I was wrong, it'd be 2 for 18, 2 for 19, and it's the third year because he was older. That would scare teams off. Fuller got it. Breeland didn't. And I think that's more a sign that the Redskins wanted to be able to say, look, we have Fuller back, so we really didn't give much up for Alex Smith, right?
Yeah, I guess that, yes, you could indeed sell it that way, and I don't think, and I think that was a good signing for the Redskins too. So
at that price, when Breeland's 1 for 4.5, you think Fuller, who couldn't beat Breeland out, 4 for 40, is a good deal?
I still think it's not as good as Breeland but they didn't want to wait. And I think the market said that. But I think in most years you would have said that that's not younger player, versatile player. So I think that in the end he'll probably end up being a better player for his career. So I still think it was a good deal. But I think the Chiefs got a very good deal for Bashad Breeland.
I think he might very well end up being the better player, but I don't think it's a good deal. And my plan A would have been to get Fuller signed. And like I said, I probably would have been willing to go in that, 3 for 24 is what I thought he was going to get, and I wasn't sure it was going to be from Kansas City. I would have been happy to go 3 for 21 and been happy to have gotten it done, and I would have walked on Breeland. But I think when you're faced with like, hey, Washington's 4 for 40, you slap the kid on the back and go, dude, go get it, man. You earned it. Congrats. And you walk away from it. I think it's too big a deal to be given to a guy who excelled as a slot corner in Washington and then never graded well here when asked to do anything else. In fact, his best plays came at safety.
I guess the versatility is what I was thinking about. I don't think you probably wanted to beat that deal from Washington. And I think, yes, you would probably slap him on the back and say that. But I think for each team, the deals were good deals. I don't have an argument with either one for either team. And if you were just going to give a letter grade for each one, I think the Chiefs, they got a player for a year. The Redskins got a player for longer. I don't know the specifics of the contract as far as I don't remember the specifics as far as how much they're really tied into him, whether the fourth year really matters, blah, blah, blah. But I think they're probably happy with the deal.
I think they are probably happy with the deal, but I don't know that they should be. But I don't give the Redskins a lot of credit. It's one of the things I'll give Brett Veach tremendous credit. Like the Cowboys ended up with a 5-year, $100 million deal with Amari Cooper because they were in a bidding war with the Redskins. And I said this to Ari Temkin on the drill last week when I'm like, listen, when you find yourself bidding back and forth with one team and that one team is the Redskins, get up and leave because you're bidding on something that's not worth it, right? If the Pats are in bidding with you, okay, right? If the Chiefs are bidding with you, okay. But I think this speaks to the fact that one, it was they didn't want to lose it to a division rival. Jerry Jones let ego get in the way. I think Amari Cooper is tremendously overpaid. I'm not saying he's not a good player. He is. But every player, this is what we go round and round about Chris Jones, which is the next side of what the Breland deal means to the Chiefs, is what it does to Chris Jones' chances of staying. By the way, 4 years, $40 million on Fuller, $12.5 million bonus, $23.5 million guaranteed with so he's basically getting $1 million this year, but he got the $12.5 million bonus. And so this year his cap hit four and a quarter. Next year 13 and a quarter, then 11 and a quarter, and then about 11 and a half. They can get out from under it after 2 years with a 6 and a quarter cap hit. So it's probably most likely they'd save $5 million getting out in 22. But I think it's probably getting out before 22. I think it's probably a 3-year deal. And if he's playing at a high level after that, then they keep him. There's still a 3.125 hit in the last year of the deal. So
the guaranteed money was kind of what you were thinking overall for the money.
Yeah, the 23.5. That's in the neighborhood of what I thought he was worth. But again, to finish my point about Cooper. Good players, you got to know where it is and you got to stop. You got to be willing to stop yourself and say, okay, you got to remove the emotion. You got to remove what he's done for us because what you're signing him for, and you're one of the best at being able to do this as well. We talk about it all the time. Listen, paying Chris Jones for his Super Bowl game, that's not what he already cashed that check. You're paying for what he's going to do forward. And I don't know how many times I got to say to fans, they couldn't wait to get Eric Berry signed for way too much money. They couldn't wait to get Easton signed for way too much money. And what do they care? Because 2 years later, they'll just bitch about that player. They have no stake in it. But if you're the GM, you can't get that wrong.
Well, that's absolutely right. And by the way, doesn't it seem like the Cowboys' salary cap must be $500 million? I mean, they've got like this guy's the highest paid player, and the only person they're not paying is the quarterback.
But they do have that on a what is it? What's the? I'm gonna look up what the franchise tag number. They are reserving $29 million for him with the franchise tag, and the Cowboys are now at total. They're showing them at about $9 million. Cap space.
Seems like they've got like 7 or 8 guys who are making massive money. I mean, isn't it just anecdotally?
Here are the top guys. Here are their top cap hits. Dak Prescott for $29 million, DeMarcus Lawrence for $22 million, Zach Martin for $15 million, Tyron Smith for $13.5, Amari Cooper, this year's number is 12, Zeke Elliott 11, Tyrone Crawford 9, Jalen Smith 8. I think what you'd find if we went through here is there's a lack of a middle class with the Cowboys.
Yeah, and it seems like maybe something's coming due on them too. But
yeah, they're multi-year. Let me see what they owe next year. That's going to look low because they're not going to have Dak Prescott number in there. Next year they're already on the hooks for $158 million, but you're going to have to add 35-ish for Prescott next year. I mean, at 29, it'll go up 20% if you just franchise tag him again. So, yeah, $35 million out of that. So, if they want to have him, they're at 193. With a cap that's at 240 and is supposed to rise every year, but may have a season played with nobody in the stands and no suites sold. So, you tell me that the cap's definitely going up for 21.
Yeah, I can't. I of the feeling that – I'm going to be surprised if football starts on time right now with fans.
Oh, with fans, I'll be stunned. I'll be stunned with fans. Now, does with fans mean they can go but they're not going? Like define with fans. I think there's a lot of people, and right now where I sit in this environment with new information, I certainly reserve the right to change. I thought Will Hobson made a great point. He said, hey, the disease can kind of morph to something that's not nearly as severe. Okay, if that happens, right, I hadn't heard that one. If that is a real possibility and that's what happens, and okay, I might have a fever for a few days and it's just like your normal old flu, yeah, I'll go back to a stadium. But if it sits like this now, we're like, okay, we've got the numbers under control, but you're still at risk, and you should wear a mask and wear gloves if you go to the stadium and this and that. I'm not going. Okay, so there's a difference between can go and people just aren't, or can't go. But I'll be surprised.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are. I mean, too many people. I think there's too many people that when you tell them that it's okay to go to the stadium, they're just going to be, okay, goody, I'm going. Yeah, this is over. I'm fine. Because there's a whole lot of people right now who think the whole thing's overdone. And I think that's unfortunate. I still see it. I saw a grade the other day. It was actually a pretty positive report from the University of Washington about the eventual death toll, and they were being more positive. But they still gave Missouri and Kansas Ds for social distancing. I might bump that up to a C, but I don't think I'd go any higher. And from what the things I see, and I think some of the discouraging things are the combination of encouraging and discouraging is like when you go to your local grocery store and you see all the things they put in place each time you go. You know, like the clear plastic in front of the cash registers, one-way aisles, and you're thinking to yourself, this is great that they're doing this. Maybe if we did this starting a month ago, right when this thing started, we'd be further ahead. So it's a combination of positive and negative. But you just wonder how this segment of the population that is being responsible, that is taking things serious, when the all clear or mostly clear is sounded, are these people still gonna queue up in line at the stadium and not be 6 feet apart and things like that? That's the type of thing you're going to want. But I actually will be surprised if stadiums are open to the fans right at the start of the football season.
Yeah, me too. I'm there as well, and I'm not sure that stadiums are going to be open until there's a vaccine. Right, but again, I do. And Will Hobson had I had, like I said, I hadn't heard that about it. Like I've heard it could morph. I'd heard it could morph, but I always heard it in terms of like it morphs away from whatever you're using to treat it, and it's just as bad or worse. I've never heard anyone say, well, it can morph and be better, which, I'm the man's an educated individual, and I'm taking him at his word that he's not talking out his rear end. But I will say this, the one thing that I have said is I am quite optimistic that as much as it's been this runaway freight train of negative news leading up to the top of the curve, that when we crest that curve and we start coming down, that I think the potential is there to have a runaway freight train of positive news, right? That, I do believe in human beings. I do believe in our ability to accomplish things, and I'd like to believe when everybody in the medical world and the pharmaceutical world is now putting their energies into focusing on finding a vaccine, that we can find it faster than people think. Listen, I didn't know what all the bad news coming out was going to be, and I don't know what all the good news is going to be, but I hold out great optimism that there will be a lot of good news that comes once we get past the worst of it. But we'll see. But I do think
I tend to agree with that. When you have something that people are pouring so much time, effort, risking their lives for, and you see the attitude. One thing where I think because it's a nationalized system, it's a very cloistered, tight, country as far as population is concerned. The reaction we're getting from medical professionals in England, I mean, their whole thing is, they don't just say stay at home, stay safe. They always say something about the medical people, the NHK or whatever it's called. I forget. I think that's right. Always saying something about that, and. So when people are energized and engaged that way, I think you're right. I think there is the possibility that perhaps we can accelerate. bad news makes good news, and there's plenty of bad news right now, and precious little good news. But I tend to agree with your sentiment as well.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. But last thing, and then we'll take a break. Like, when I try to ask people, like, okay, so what about with the cap if they don't have anyone in the stands and this and that? And when I talk to people who I know don't have any idea about it, that are just other media pigs, I notice that their reaction to it is exactly what their reaction is on Chris Jones. If they want Chris Jones signed, they say, well, the NFL will do whatever. It's fine. There won't be a problem. There'll be exemptions or they'll change it or whatever. That's what I hear. And I'm like, what if the cap goes down? I don't think you can just say, well, now you don't have to count these guys as much, because the owners want their share, right? And the cap is what keeps them from paying more than, 49% or 51% to the players. So I think if they don't have the revenues coming in, the cap's not going to go up. I'm
trying to think what's the status of the television deal? Did they just redid it?
At the end of it's due. It comes due. The national one's at the end of 22.
Well, that's why I think maybe you have a chance for a little fallback. But I think, especially if people are less inclined to go to a stadium and everything, I think they're probably going to get some boffo football ratings this fall. So they're probably going to be the NFL once again. Will probably be in a sweet position when it comes to negotiating their TV deal, because they'll be coming off unprecedentedly high ratings that are based on a once-in-a-lifetime, we hope, scenario. And so once again, I think the NFL might come out smelling like a rose in that regard, because the television money is really what's driving the deal.
Well, let's talk about the television deal next, because I think that's an interesting point, because I think there's two sides to that coin. We'll do that next. Danny Klinkskill is with us. Danny Unleashed, brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing, certified commercial roofer as well as residential roofer. You can check them out online at eastonroofing.com. Project manager at every site, happy to do repairs, 4 straight years. Voted Best of Houses award winner, Angie's List Super Service award winner. And if you don't just take it from me and Danny, how pleased we have been with the work that Easton Roofing has done with our homes. Check them out on Google. Their reviews are unbelievable. No payment collected until you're 100% satisfied, and they're happy to take credit cards or PayPal for that payment. Get a free estimate right now. We had hail and some damaging storms a week or so ago. Hail can just kind of knock your roof around, not really have it leaking in. But if you need to get an estimate, get an inspection, they do it for free at Easton Roofing. Never any high-pressure sales tactic or trying to lobby you to go put in an insurance claim that may create big problems for you in the future. That's not how Easton Roofing does business. Find them online at eastonroofing.com. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way, and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
This quarterback, the first player to be named to the Pro Bowl and win an Emmy. Who is he?
Named to the Pro Bowl and win an Emmy. As an actor or just
an Emmy.
Ed Marinero.
Nope.
It's got to be a producer or a director or something like that, right?
Or a commentator.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
the GIF, Frank Gifford.
You are so close.
You
are in the same booth.
Don Meredith.
Dandy Don. Pro Bowl 66 through 68, won an Emmy in 1971 for his work on Monday Night Football. Born in the state.
I was pretty little when he was in the booth. Did he deserve that Emmy, Curtis? You and Danny are much, much, much older than me.
You go back and you listen. Danny may have a better form. You go back and listen to some of the stuff, and you think that guys were. There really wasn't a whole lot. You listen to some of those old games from '75 or the mid '70s. You're going, man, they did not really offer a lot of analysis. There were a couple of guys who were really good. Paul Crispin was good. I mean, some guys were good, but I remember watching the '75 AFC Championship game. It's Kurt Gowdy, Al DeRogatis, and Don Meredith, and neither one of them really knew what was going on. Let's ask one of them. One of them threw it to, well, what happens if this guy's hurt? Well, I don't know. Let's ask Kurt. And Kurt's like, I'm not coaching the team. What are you asking me for? You're the you could almost hear him go, you're the analyst. What are you pitching it back to me for?
Dandy Don was more shtick than anything else.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and it was pretty good shtick. I'll say that. I mean, he was an entertaining guy, and
he was a foil for Cosell.
But Howard was running the show, really.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of grab ass going on. Let's put it that way.
But people like
Howard was good.
Yeah. But people also thought the people who didn't like Howard liked the fact that when he would say something, Meredith would just go, "Oh, come on, Howard, come on." Oh, come on,
Howard was good for a while.
Yeah,
I agree.
Then
he became Howard.
A caricature.
Yes.
He just became a caricature. So.
Well, then this is what happens with old broadcasters. By the way, we were playing for Good Sense. Get the Good Sense to Go meals. Very popular, by the way. Thanks to our friends at Good Sense. Founded right here in Lenexa, Kansas. Locally owned and operated your Good Sense restaurants. Needing food on your way home. Don't forget, they're selling their sliced meats and cheeses for $5 a pound. The bread, baked fresh twice each day, 75 cents for a 12-inch loaf. If you want to take it home and make your own sandwiches of varying kinds, you can get that. But $5 for the grab-and-go meals, the Good Sense to Go. Wonderful, wonderful product that has been really well received. I'll tell you where it's been very popular is taking it over to a friend's family that are not able to get out and need a good meal. It comes with the protein, the sides. Of course, they're wonderful pastas, but also classic pot roast, lasagna, naked chicken and veggies, meatloaf, grilled Alaskan salmon. They are absolutely wonderful, and all of them right now during the pandemic are just $5 each. Go online to goodsensesubs.com to put your order in, select your time, and then pick it up. Good Sense to Go. A lot of talking about announcers that are great. That's what they end up. They almost sound like they're guys doing impressions of what they used to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they quit. Yeah, sorry, Danny. I know there's a little bit of a delay between me and you. I'm sorry to cut you off. They get to where they're like, okay, these are the things that people told me they liked before, and so they say things with like emphasis or trying to be funny or shticks, but they're not ever actually giving you any real analysis anymore.
Right, and also as Howard went along, I mean, he pretty much treated Monday Night Football like a cocktail affair. I mean, is known to be more than half in the bag by the time the game started, so that never helps. And as was on more than one occasion threw up in the booth.
Yeah, there's video of him clearly drunk at Franklin Field in Philadelphia. He comes back and he says, Franklin Field in Philadelphia, 13-9 Eagles.
There's a show on Comedy Central called Drunk History.
Right,
and I think it's made better by the fact that they're drunk. If it was just history, and I was listening to a sober person tell me the history of something, I would not be watching anymore. I'd go to the History Channel and watch the experts. But because they're drunk and telling the story, it's really good.
It is a funny show. I'll give you that. But between the combination of Howard being too full of himself, eventually too full of alcohol, and not taking the whole thing seriously, by the end it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Do you think we could do drunk commentary?
Well, I don't think we do. I don't know if I really have ever often gotten as drunk as Howard appeared to be on a couple of occasions. I could probably have several beers and do a commentary on a football game, but maybe not 12 martinis or something.
Yeah, could you do drunk commentary on a game? I think the answer is yes. It's been proven to be successful. It's called Twitter.
Yes.
Right.
You tell me that a lot of the people I'm getting reaction from are not half in the bag or fully in the bag.
Absolutely.
But probably if they're half in the bag, they're more clever. Fully in the bag, then probably not so much.
Yeah, because half in the bag just kind of lowers the wall. Well, you kind of take off the filters and you kind of see once you're fully in, you stop making sense.
Well, I agree. The guy who's totally drunk is funny for about 2 minutes, and then he's just annoying. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it would be a really hard broadcast to produce, because how do you keep somebody just half in the bag? Because generally they're having a pretty good time to get half in the bag, and they keep going. That's how they end up all the way in the bag. But the sweet spot of the broadcast is half in the bag.
It's hard to keep that, because if they stop, then they start to come out of the bag, and they're not as funny. But if they just get to halfway in, and then just kind of Jed's already marking that, and just kind of nurse it to where you stay right at that. Perfect.
You'd have to have a breathalyzer right there on set so you could be checking. It's like, whoa,
nope.
You're .03.
Too drunk.
Get another drink in you.
Too straight. Nope, too drunk.
Whoa, .07. Whoa, back off.
This very much reminds me of a shortstop you had an older man who played shortstop on our Lawrence softball team, and this guy was a drunk, and he had to have 4 beers to function. And he was good. He was a really good fielder and could play, but he would continue to drink, and then we could never play him in doubleheaders. And once he got to about 8, then that was it. We brought the reserve shortstop in. So he had the 4 beer wheelhouse. Had to have 4. Couldn't go past 8.
I know. I think it's. I don't know if it's wonderful or just maybe the saddest statement I've ever made on the radio, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Kind of like when you're shooting pool. If you make the first few when you've had a few, you're probably good.
Yeah.
You start missing, you might as well give up.
Yeah. All right. We will take a break. We will dive deeper into things. I wanted to get into that NFL TV contract. I've got a lot of other things I wanted to talk about as well. But, Danny, you sidetrack us, damn it.
Yeah, that's what we like to do, right?
Yeah, it is. It is what we do. It's Unleashed is what it is. It's Danny Unleashed, brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing. EastonRoofing.com. It's where integrity matters, commercial and residential. Easton Roofing, let them come over and give you a free estimate. If you're not sure about your roof, you think you might have some problems, free estimate for you. They will be happy to come over and give you an inspection and estimate. It's at Easton Roofing, 913-257-5426.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker of Easton Roofing. And Joe, oftentimes people will wait to replace their roof until there is a weather event. What should they know about that?
Well, Danny, the important thing to remember is if you're going to turn in a claim to your insurance company, you want to make sure that you actually have damage on your home. If you turn in a claim to your insurance company and they send an insurance adjuster out, it's going to be a claim whether they give you $1 or $10,000. So it's important to make sure that you actually have damage on your home before you turn that claim in. And all you have to do is give us a call. We'll come out, take a look, and make sure there's real damage, and we'll tell you if there's not. Maybe it's just a small repair and it's not worth a claim. So it's always smart to get somebody you trust to make sure there's damage before you turn in a claim.
Quality advice and guidance from Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
You're in the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're talking to Danny Clinkscale. We call it Danny Unleashed. It's brought to you by our friends at Easton Roofing. Go to eastonroofing.com. Integrity matters. Easton Roofing. Commercial and residential, by the way. I want to mention that. And looking to hire right now. So call 913-257-5426. Danny, talking about the TV contract for the NFL, and we're saying, It's looming over there, and it always seems to go up. And you mentioned, I said there was two sides to the coin. You mentioned the fact that, the ratings are going to be huge. True, but the TV people are going to know that part of the reason the ratings are huge is if everybody's, on shutdown. But also, isn't there a fear now? Like, would you hesitate, or at least there's got to be clauses written into how you're going to pay things out for pandemics?
Well, I do think that people, you mentioned this yesterday on the show, I heard you, and I had mentioned it the week before. I think, that one of the things that really kind of pushed Wimbledon and the Open Championship to cancel, not just postpone, is that they had huge insurance policies. And I think that we'll see a lot of that, a lot of things written into contracts, because we just had never seen anything to this degree, even, maybe localized, maybe for one community like Katrina or something like that, but not for an entire nation. Now we know this is possible. We've seen it firsthand. So, yeah, I think that'll be a complicated negotiation. Still, the ratings will be what they are, and it will be hard for, somebody to say, hey, everybody said less people are going to the stadium, but more people are going to watch television now. That's what they've gotten used to during this period of time. Or the other thing, you talked about two sides of the coin, maybe a lot of people will discover that, they found some other things to do. I think people are going to go racing back to sports because they haven't, this hasn't been a strike or a, lockout for a month or something. This is going to be months and months and months with no sports, not just one sport. So I tend to think that the fans are going to go rushing back, but there's also the aspect of it that maybe some of them found out that they can live a little bit without it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I had that thought, and I'm like, well, I think I'll go rushing back. I think there are people that benefited from this. I think there'll probably be a few that are like, hey, you know what I found out? Like, we spent a lot of time together as a family, and I need to do more of that. I think the other thing that complicates it is what's going on with, particularly when you talk about just overall sports television contracts like baseball. I had a nice exchange back and forth with a listener who was talking about how they've danced from streaming service to streaming service trying to get the Royals. And they're in Wichita, and they're like, well, it was on YouTube TV, but YouTube TV didn't have it. I said, well, they brought it back. I know they didn't have it for like 2 weeks or weren't going to have it. They obviously never lost it. I said, but they brought it back. He said, yeah, that's only in Kansas City. They didn't bring it back to Wichita. He's right. A listener down in Wichita. I was like, oh, really? I didn't know that. He said, yeah. Well, that's one of the things is like now we've all, the streaming has been great for a lot of people because they can get, only the channels they watch and not have to pay for channels they're not getting. It's a diet version of the a la carte plan. And then some of them are even like, hey, pick your 10 channels, whatever you want, the locals plus 10 channels, whichever 10 you want. The problem is, though, for sports, though, that's such a driving force that now, we looked at the Dodgers, who, by the way, now are finally going to be on DirecTV for the first time in 7 years. And I think they were talking about it opening up like 50% of the LA market. They'd only been on in 30% of the LA market. Well, now that you've got, 3 streaming companies, and now AT&T is going to do their own streaming. I know Comcast has their own streaming company. Spectrum has their own streaming company. Well, those are going to be individual by individual. You end up buying 5 different streaming packages. You're right back at the price you were paying for like a DirecTV, who's losing subscribers right and left.
I think there's a lot of people who just like the process or think they're fooling the man or whatever. To get what, you got before, you had too much. I mean, there are a lot of channels you never ever watched. But, yes, I think you end up in a lot of cases, if you're a big sports fan and you have other interests as well, I think you end up just finding a different way to get to the same bill. Now, if you like that, fine, okay, whatever. But I think in some cases it's just people thinking they're more clever than they really are.
Yeah, no, I think there's a little bit. I think as is often the case, the clever people were the ones that got in early. And then by the time the mainstream or the masses get in on it, all the bargains, all the value's gone. I don't know. Like, I'll be honest. I mean, I talk about this. I'm looking at getting rid of DirecTV just because the Sunday ticket with a family, really, it's only good for the noon games. And after that, there's only like 1 or 2 games you're getting at the 3 o'clock games. There's so many spread everywhere else. Like, one of the things I've said is, like, the NFL needs to look at expanding if they're going to keep the Sunday ticket relevant. You know, as long as they're going to keep putting things at different times, well, then everybody gets those. When they're standalone games, you get those. So the Sunday ticket's just not that important for me anymore. And DirecTV's had so many problems. I'm like, okay, I'll go to streaming. I can get 2 streaming. I can get like YouTube and Sling, and my bill will be roughly half what it is for just DirecTV. And with YouTube and Sling, I will get Fox Sports Kansas City and the NFL Network.
Yeah, I think DirecTV probably has a pretty good beef with the NFL, with all the games that are there now, and the fact that sometimes there's usually no more than 3 games in that second window. And
right.
they've got to do a better job. There's no reason that some East Coast games couldn't be in a 3 o'clock window. And, you know, that would do DirecTV a solid if the NFL even cares to do them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they've got to get to where I think the NFL, first of all, at a couple of $1 billion a team, why wouldn't you expand by 8 teams over the next 20 years? You know,
I've been surprised that the NFL has not expanded in quite a long time. I mean, it seems to be such a juggernaut that I don't really. When was the last expansion?
Oh boy, it's whenever the Browns came on board, right? The new Browns, which is more than 10 years ago, I think. But right. The thing that what I've always been told by guys I know that are in and around those owner meetings, some of my friends that work out at the league office, is that, like, they've been wanting to solve the LA dilemma first. Like, fixing LA, figuring out LA has been the priority. And now I think they'll start talking about, particularly if they lose revenue now, and they're like, wait a minute, we got 2 towns that'll give us $2 billion each. Oh yeah, that'll recoup the money I lost here in this pandemic.
Yeah, well, they may have missed the boat though. There are probably a lot of cities who were in a position before where they were like, oh yeah, we want the NFL bad. Now they're just going to pay debt for coronavirus debt for the next 10 years.
DannyClinkscale.com. That's where you can see Danny's great work. He's brought to you by Easton Roofing. Danny, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, happy Easter to everybody.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.